Spoiler alert from Mushoku Tensei Volume 8. If you haven't read it, then I suggest you do so before continuing on to this video. After adventuring for a couple of years, Rudeus gets an invitation to go to a magical school. But little does he know, someone from his past will meet him there. Hello everybody, this is the Anime Bro here, and welcome to another video. And today, I'll be reviewing Mushoku Tensei Volume 8. Now before this video starts, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this, and come back next time as I talk about Volume 9. And now, let's begin the video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the story. Now Volume 8 starts off really good. You get to see Rudeus going on an adventure, you get to see him kill a dragon. It really is a cool, epic way to start this volume. And then he eventually gets an invitation to go to the magical school that his master used to go to, which I think is also pretty cool. He's getting to learn more magic the same way his master did. You know, a person he really puts on high regards. But then after that, honestly, it kind of gets boring. Yeah, we get to see the many encounters with Fittz and Rudeus, but honestly, they weren't the same as Eris and Rudeus. I thought this volume was actually a big disappointment. It was a good volume, just not good enough to follow up Volume 7. The beginning was very interesting, but then when the volume continued on and on, honestly, I didn't care for it. I was really interested in Rudeus' progress, especially after the arc he went through in Volume 7, and also we get to see the return of the man god who helps Rudeus out, but honestly it was just pretty bland afterwards. There were some good moments in there, but nothing really caught my eye. It's honestly very similar to Volume 3. Volume 3's biggest part wasn't really the story itself, it was more of the lore behind the Superb. And in Volume 8, we actually don't get that much lore at all. We do have bits of like beast folklore, kinda, and also a bit more of like vocation lore in terms of what this school is, but there's really not much to it, really. I thought it was pretty boring compared to the other volumes we saw. We do get to see some new characters. We also get to meet some old characters from some side stories that we've read, like Cliff and Elise, you know, all those people. So it did have some good moments, but honestly, I just didn't like the school aspect of it. Him just going to school. He had a mission, but it wasn't for the teleportation incident. It was really just to cure his problem, which honestly kind of disappointed me because Rudeus became the same guy that I've been hating for so long. So that was a big disappointment for me. Alright, now let's talk about some characters. Now, we have a collection of new characters and we also got a collection of some reoccurring characters. So let's just get into it. So, the first new character that I want to talk about is Elinalise. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but that's basically how I'm going to say it. So when we first meet Elinalise, it was actually a side story in Volume 4. But this is the first time that Rudeus is actually seeing her, so that's why I decided to talk about her now. Now, what we know of Elinalise is that she really hates Paul. Something happened in the past that made her hate Paul when they were working together in the same party, and she hasn't forgiven him yet. And because of that, she kinda doesn't like Rudeus because he is Paul's son. But she's willing to tolerate him because she's good friends with Roxy, who Rudeus learned under. So that kinda cancels it out, I guess. What we learned from her as an adventurer is that she's a very good tank. She can really take the damage and get the aggro, so, you know, she's a good tank when it comes to a party. And then finally, the one thing that we learn is that she has a curse where she has to sleep with many men or else she dies. But honestly, I don't think it's a curse because she seems to enjoy it, and she continuously does it and doesn't see a problem with it. So yeah, that's that. That's the end of her. Alright, so the next characters I want to talk about kind of go hand in hand together. They both come from the same place, they both are very similar, so I'll just put two of them together. And that is linia and pursena. Again, if I'm getting these names wrong, I am totally sorry. I am not really good with names. Now, both of them come from the same village, the Beastfolk village that Rudeus visited during his travels in the Millis continent. Both of them were transferred here because they were very naughty and they were causing problems for the village themselves. And both caused trouble at the school that they are visiting because of their arrogancy. Now, the main thing that's really different is what their positions are in the village. Linia is actually the heir to the village. So whenever her grandfather dies and then her father dies, she will be the leader of the village. Or her husband will be the leader of the village. While pursena is more of like a friend slash bodyguard. So she doesn't really hold any important roles, I think. She's just there because she is a friend to linia, and they both went together. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say about these two. They do some things that eventually get Rudeus angry, and he kind of tames them. He makes them submit themselves to him. So that's basically all that I have to say. They don't really play an important role, they're just there. And then the final character in the new character category is Julie. Now Julie is a dwarf slave that was bought by Zanoba and Rudeus. She is 6 years old and she is basically here to help Zanoba with his doll making practices. Now in terms of a character, she acts like a kid. Whenever Rudeus gets very angry, she actually gets scared. She tries her best to learn everything she could, and she definitely tries to help out her master however she can. And it's not only because she's just a good person, it's also because Zanoba treats her like a sibling. And I kind of do like the duo between these two. So yeah, that's all the new characters. Not really deep characters right now, but as soon as we learn more, we might actually get some interesting backstories with them. Alright, now let's talk about the two old characters that we got. So the first one I will talk about is Zanoba. So after the events of Volume 6, Zanoba has been transferred to the university. I think it's mostly to keep him under control, and they don't want to deal with him, so that's why they sent him there. And I think it's an important thing that Zanoba actually got transferred here because he really hit it off with Rudeus, especially since they already knew each other. He's a special student in the university, and like before, he is very interested in figurines. He loves dolls of some sort, to a point where it's a really weird relationship. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. He's very dedicated to learning how dolls are made, to a point where he actually buys a slave just so that he has a way to make dolls. And he loves them so much to a point where one time when one of the dolls were broken, he got very depressed and was very sad. Now, like I said in the Julia point, the real main thing I really like about him is the duo of Julie and Zanoba. They really act like siblings, and it really shows that Zanoba really does care about her, even though she's really a slave. And then finally, we got the most interesting character of Volume 8, Fittz. So Fittz is a bodyguard to the next ruler of the Rano Kingdom, which is Princess Ariel. Her first meeting with her was actually during the teleportation incident. We actually got to see this in a side story in Volume 3, but I didn't really share about it because it wasn't really a main part of the story. It was, like I said, a side story. And it's also here that we learn that he can use magic without incantations, which is pretty impressive. A lot of people can't do that, so it's a really handy thing. And out of all the people he's met, Fittz seems to be one of his best friends. They really do hang out with each other and really do seem like genuine friends. And it's a good relationship that they have. But that's not really even the biggest thing. The biggest thing that is revealed is that Fittz is actually Sylphie, the childhood friend of Rudeus. And this basically is the reason why they kind of hit it off. Sylphie knows who Rudeus is, so she tries her best to actually help him out. And especially when you learn about this, you kind of understand the relationship between it. And it's also kind of shocking that Rudeus didn't know who this was. But I think that's mostly because the hair color was changed and she was wearing glasses, so there's definitely some reason why he would mistake it. But that is really all I have to say. Rudeus was able to reunite with someone from his past, and that honestly is probably one of the most interesting parts of this volume. Alright, now let's talk about location. So the first location that I want to talk about is the Rano Kingdom. Now this kingdom holds a lot of power and influence, mostly because of two things. First off is the Magician's Guild. The Magician's Guild basically is one of the most powerful guilds and also one of the most elite guilds. It's in fact very hard to get into this guild, unlike the Adventurers Guild. But I think the main reason why this holds a lot of power is because it is home to the University of Magic. And a lot of people go here. Nobles, commoners, and not just people from human race, even people from faraway countries like beast folk, even some demons actually come here. In fact, Roxy used to study under here, so it's a really well-known spot for people to learn not just magic but just general things. Now, in this area there are districts. First one is the student district, which is where the University of Magic is. Things that are there are the staff that live there and some of the students, so it's basically self-explanatory. Next we got the workshop district, which is home to Neris magical implants. Now I don't know if this is a well-known name for magical implants, but if it's set here then I think it is, because this is where the Magician's Guild is. So if they use these stuff, then I really do think it's really well known. And then we got a commerce district, which is home to the Traders Guild. So that might also actually be a reason why it has a lot of power and influence, because trade routes bring in money and a lot of people want to go where the money is. And it has a lodging district where, people go to live. So that's where most likely the inn is, and probably some bars, Certain locations had bars in their lodging districts, so that's that. And also, just a side note in the commerce district is that they have a slave market. Now, I want to put that in because one of our characters, Julie, was actually brought there. So it kind of holds a important part in the story because we meet a really good character. And one little side note, even though in terms of scale it's probably not a side note, is that this country is one of the 3 magic nations. So I'm guessing it's one of the best locations in terms of magic. Again, I don't know, I'm just guessing, so if that is the case, then yeah. Alright, now let's get into the final location, and a location that I think is going to be the major part of the next couple of volumes, which is the University of Magic. Now, some trivia things that I like to lay out before we get into the buildings and whatnot. It has a statue of the first principal, so it pays respects to its founding fathers. Another thing is that the current principal is a king tier magician named George. I don't know if he's important, I don't know what he does, so I'll just leave it at that. Now, in terms of buildings and stuff that are here, they have a building with a mock battle. And it's here that we get to see the first reunion of Rudeus and Sylphie. They have a storage room with practice gear for magic, for students that want to practice their magic but don't really have the materials for it. They got a room for that. They got an infirmary, which is really helpful for those students who duel each other or just get hurt for any sort of reason. The infirmary has 2 healers and 8 beds, which I guess is important, but with a massive school, I think it should be a bit bigger, and that's just my opinion. It also has a cafeteria, which is separated through 3 floors, and each floor is separated through either race or profession. First floor is usually where the adventurers and demons go, second floor is where the commoners and beast folk go, and the third floor is where the nobility and royalty go. So there's kind of some segregation in this school. And then finally, there is a library, and the books in there have many different languages, which makes sense because this school is very well diverse in terms of the races that are here and also the countries that each student probably comes from. And the library seems to be the meeting ground for Fittz and Rudeus most of the time, so that's kind of why I made it the last thing. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say about these locations. Okay, now let's talk about some iconic moments. So the first moment that I have is the man god talks to Rudeus again. Now this is a big moment to me because whenever the man god shows up, something big would happen. We got to see this in volume 4, and we also got to see this in volume 6. And it's also because of the man god that Rudeus goes to the university. The man god tells Rudeus that if he goes to the university, then he'll find a way to fix his problem and also improve his magic. But like I said, Rudeus's big concern is his problem, not really his magic right now. And then the next moment that I have is that Fittz and Rudeus meet. Now, this is an important moment because we learned that Fittz is really Sylphie. So after so long, it's good to meet up with people that you haven't seen in a long time. Now, they first meet up during the entrance exam, and they meet during a duel, and Rudeus actually testing his magic. So it's a big moment, especially because Sylphie and Rudeus are finally meeting, but also Rudeus doesn't recognize Sylphie. But then again, like I've said, Sylphie has white hair now and was wearing glasses, so it's really hard to know what you really look like. And then the next moment that I have is Fittz helps Rudeus out. So when Rudeus is actually walking home one day to go to the dorms, he accidentally catches a girl's underwear. Now, there was a rule that was said that during a specific amount of time, men are not allowed to actually walk near the girls' dorm for obvious reasons. It would be very suspicious. Now, he didn't know this, which honestly I think is an important rule that someone should actually tell him. I don't know why no one told him at all. It's very stupid and really on the staff about this. Now, besides getting angry about the staff, let me continue back to what I was actually going to talk about. So, when Rudy's caught the underwear, some girls actually see him and really go to town on him. They're basically yelling at him, saying, like, you're a monster, you should get out of here, this is definitely not where you should be. And in the time, Rudeus is just very frightened. After volume 7, he kind of is like sad of life. He doesn't really feel great about himself. So to him just to get accused for something he didn't do was kind of sad, and he was panicking too. But then out of nowhere, Fittz comes in and tells them it's all a misunderstanding, you guys need to go. But even though she says that, no one really buys it and they're willing to attack him. But Fittz stands her ground and tells them, if you want to attack Rudeus, then I will do the same. And this is a good moment because it kind of helps Rudeus have a closer friendship with Fittz. Before, he just saw him as a person you should admire and respect. Now it's more of a friendship that they actually get to, and he's really happy about it. Next, we got Sylphie's perspective. Now, during Sylphie's perspective, we get to learn many different things. Her daily routine, which is basically wake up, go out and do some light jogging, getting some exercise, and then helping the princess out with, getting her dressed and stuff like that. But not only that, we also get to learn about how much she loves Rudeus. Like, it's to a point where she wants to marry him. And she comes to think of it as, like, if Rudeus ever gets a second wife, she needs to be, like, the mediator. She wants to marry him someday, and this is a good moment to actually have. Now, it's not as big as Eris's moment. I still think to this day Eris's moment was one of the best, and really sad that we don't get to see her anymore. But Sylphie's perspective is pretty cool to have, and I'm glad we actually got it. And then the final big moment that I want to talk about is the purchase of Julie. So when they first go out to get a slave, they have very specifics that they want to look for. The first one being that they have to be a dwarf, so that their hands can be used to create figures. And then the second one would be that they would have to be young, so that they can learn silent casting magic easily. Because studies show that silent casting is something that is easily learned when you're younger than when you're older. Now when Rudeus sees Julie, she sees her in a state where it's very depressing. She looks like she's died. She doesn't look like she cares about anything, and it's very sad to see that. Rudeus first sees her, he goes up to her and asks her, does she want to live? And in Rudeus's mind, he was thinking of this. If she said yes, then they would take her home, they would treat her well and try their best to work really hard together. But if she didn't, he was actually going to kill her, because he knew this wasn't a life for a girl, and whatever she was gone through was probably worse than whatever Rudeus has ever gone through. So when she said yes, they bought her, they took her home, and eventually they got her cleaned up and made her look like a normal person. And also Zanoba gave her the name Julie because he felt bad on the day that he accidentally killed his younger brother. And it's basically a name to honor his dead younger brother, which really shows he did really feel bad about that. And it helps make Zanoba become a more in-depth character instead of being just this guy who likes figurines. And it also explains a lot why Zanoba treats her like a sibling, because he gave her the name of the brother that passed. Alright, now let's end this video. So if I were to rank this volume, I would honestly rate it a C. There is not much here. We get the introduction to the university, we get to see what it looks like, we get to see Rudeus reunite with Sylphie, so that's a good thing, but honestly, there's not really much to it. The story mostly just follows Rudeus's life in school, and all these other points are just things that happen. Now, honestly, I know a lot of people who probably like the school setting in most anime, but to me, after going through so many volumes that had family dramas or well-known moments or just had a depressing tone, this was really a disappointment. I didn't feel like there was anything important besides Rudeus going into the school, Rudeus talking with the man god, and Rudeus reuniting with Sylphie. Those were basically the only points that I thought were very important. After that, it just seemed like it really couldn't matter. Yeah, I named many iconic moments in this volume, but they were just moments. This was very disappointing after going through the devastating depression state that Rudeus was going through in volume 7. But I do think that Rudeus is getting better as a person, especially with the help of Sylphie. But like I said, there was not really much of a moment that helped carry this volume. It was mostly just Rudeus goes to school, and then Rudeus just lives his life. Which, if you're a slice in life fan, I can understand why you might find these things enjoyable, but honestly, there was still no goal besides him finding a solution to his problem. Hopefully, it comes better in volume 9. But so far, this volume was a real major disappointment in my eyes. Alright, and that is the end of this video. If you really enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos just like this. And come back next time as we talk about Volume 9. Rudeus is not going on any more adventures, so I guess I'm in for the ride in his life at school. And as always, I am the Anime Bro, and see you guys later. Peace.